Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craig Hallstrom. I'm the president of electric operations for Eversource. Um, Thanks for coming today. We wanted to get out in the field and just get a look at some of the devastation and the destruction from the storm. Here in Cheshire, we have, at the height of the storm, about 100,000 customers out. We have a big effort here of restoring, and I think you saw when you came in, especially when you came around the other way, the significant tree damage. And some of the takeaways that I saw, the trees not just broke the limbs, but many of them just fell over, root ball and all. So, that's the kind of wind damage I think we saw with this storm, and that's some of the reasons for the widespread devastation. We're about 48 hours into the storm, a little more. As I said at previous sessions, the first 24 hours, we really focus on safety for the communities, the public, our employees, and we try to make the system safe. We work very hard with communities to unblock roads, to get trees out of the way so they can have essential services. And we also work real hard to free up any police or fire that may be standing down watching wires with our folks. And we've been doing that, like I say, for the first 24 hours, and we continue to do it, and we continue to work very closely with the communities. I know it's a very frustrating time for our communities and certainly for our customers, right? We're in the middle of the pandemic, the COVID. We just went through a heat wave. What people really don't need is an extended power outage, and we understand that, and we're working very hard. We're working kind of tirelessly 24/7, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to our crews. Obviously, they've left their homes. They're working 24/7. We've brought in crews from all over the region, including the Midwest, Canada, Illinois, Detroit. We're getting crews from Pennsylvania, and we'll continue to get more crews. So yesterday, as I reported, we had about 450 or so crews. Today, right now, we have north of 700 electrical restoration crews, and then we have another, probably 500 or 600 wire down people, damage assessors, back office people who kind of make this all work. As of today, we've committed to 1,200 crews that are arriving today and early tomorrow, and we're signing up more crews all the time. So by the end of tomorrow, we'll have even more. So clearly, we will have the right number of crews to tackle this outage as quickly as possible. In terms of outages, we have about 519,000 customers out. That's about 360,000 customers we've restored since the beginning of the storm. And again, the first part of the storm was really focused on damage assessment, make safe. So right now, we're really starting to ramp up. As you see, the crews here really starting to focus on restoration of our system, the backbone, the main feeders, while at the same time paying very close attention and continuing to work with our communities in terms of wire down, road clearings, and those things. So we're starting to go into somewhat of a parallel effort, but clearly our focus is on helping our communities, reaching out to them and making sure they get what they need. Yesterday reported we had some damage on our transmission system. I can report today that our 5 major lines are back. Those were lines that were feeding substations that then feed neighborhoods. Those lines are back, the substations are energized, and we're starting to restore customers on those locations. Some of the other things we do when you think about a big storm and you're bringing in thousands of workers from outside is, of course, lodging, food, materials, those types of things. So where you'll see in the area, we're setting up staging areas. We have a large staging area in Bristol, Lake Compounce, where we're bringing in a company called Base Logistics that helps us with sleeping crews, feeding crews, and that'll end up being a large kind of line worker village by the time we're finished. And again, you think about the pandemic, right? Normally we would just spread people out in hotel rooms. We have to do things a lot different. We have to make sure we keep people contained, we keep companies contained, we try not to mix across, and really focusing on the pandemic and things like face masks and social distancing and all those things, which is obviously very difficult during an event like this. This evening we will have a global estimate on when our system will be restored. I believe, I'm very confident that this weekend, by the end of this weekend, we will have a very large chunk of the customers restored, and then we'll be working on the smaller neighborhoods and services. So, all in all, of course, we feel the urgency. We know the urgency. This is something that we have a very good plan that we focus on, and I think even today you're going to see a lot of people coming back by the end of the day.
You're talking about some of these plans that you guys have had and the number of crews you have.
Yep.
Do you feel that, what do you say to people who say that those crews should have been here before that storm started?
Yeah. So, we have a planning process, and, obviously it involves watching the weather, and I think, you know more than anybody, the storm wiggled its way up the East Coast, and we watched it starting last Friday. We committed to resources at that time. We brought crews down from Canada and other crews that we work with a lot. So we had what I think is a sufficient amount to start the process. Once the event happens and we know the damage, then we go into action and we go through EEI, mutual aid process, and we bring more crews in. And like I say, by tomorrow, we'll probably have tripled or even more our crew complement than when we started.
But when was the decision made to bring in other crews, other contractors? Because we had an executive do an interview with us on WFSB Wednesday morning saying the priority was going to be Eversource crews from other states because of COVID concerns, and there really wasn't a conversation to bring in other contractors from Canada, from the Midwest.
Yeah.
So when was that decision made?
So when we talked last week, Thursday, Friday, we're obviously very aware of the pandemic, and our states in the Northeast are doing well in that regard. So we tried to keep within the Northeast and in Canada, because again, they're doing very well in terms of the pandemic as well. We brought those resources in. Those are the resources we initially committed to, but as soon as we saw the damage, we knew that wouldn't work, that we had to go. Traditionally, we go out to the Midwest, we go down to Florida, we go everywhere we need to go. So as soon as we saw the damage the other day, we made that decision. We communicated that to our regulators, because we had communicated prior that we were trying to contain where our resources came from. So as soon as we saw the damage, we said we have to go do what we traditionally do, reach out to all the partners that we traditionally use, and bring those folks in. So that was done very quickly.
And what were the factors that went into the projection that you guys gave to PURA? Because it was obviously only a fraction of what we ultimately saw, and certainly the forecasts were calling for high winds, which we did see. So what went into the projection?
Yep, so we have a planning process, and of course we have two different weather services. We pay attention to national weather, and then we work very closely with UConn. UConn does a damage prediction model for us that they've been doing for many years, and they have a lot of experience with that. And they predict how many damage locations that we potentially would see from an event like this. And that's one of the factors that goes into that. And that storm prediction was on, Monday night into Tuesday was around the 8,000 level. Previous to that, over the weekend, it was about 3,000. Because again, this storm kind of wiggled its way up, right? No one was really sure exactly where it was going to go. So we use that as our predictive tool, and we declared on our plan what we call a level 4 ERP. And that level of damage is in that declaration. Once we see what actually is happening, we ramp up and adjust accordingly. Whether we declared a level 3 or level 4, it's part of a planning process, and there's guidelines of how many crews and how many damage locations, and we were in those bandwidths with our level 4 declaration.
So was that forecast from UConn that was off?
Well, it's a prediction of weather. I mean, they have a lot of inputs. They've been helping us do this for a lot of years. And again, that's just one input. We have, like I say, we have two weather services. We have national weather. Obviously we listen to all the local forecasts. And, we work very hard to figure out what's going to happen. But, until it hit, I would suggest no one knows exactly what's going to happen.
Given,
But, yep.
given your company's history in the past decade of having these extended outages, was that even taken into account that, you've had extended outages at least 3 or 4 times like this? Why not err on the side of caution?
Well, we actually do. We're very conservative in what we do and how we plan. But we know that we put our plan into place. We do the best we can to determine how many resources we need. You can't hire thousands and thousands of crews based on you just want to be prepared. Economically, financially, that doesn't make any sense. We make the best predictions we can, and then we adjust accordingly.
But what's the breakdown of people, contractors versus Eversource employees? Because one of the arguments for using contractors has been, well, you don't have to pay their benefits. I mean, you have to pay them something, obviously, but
no. So, well, when you're in storm mode, you take any resources you can, and there's the pay. I don't really understand the question. We don't hire crews based on their benefits or their pay. We have a sufficient amount of crews at Eversource every day, and that level is actually built into our rates, and we supplement that with contractors as our capital construction goes up and down every year.
But you just said it wasn't financially prudent to have a lot of people on the ground here. And
Well, I meant for an event for big storms like this, you can't staff for big storms like this day to day. You staff what you need day to day for your capital plan and your normal everyday storms, lightning, windstorms. And when you have events like this will be the second biggest storm in Connecticut's history.
But all this extra work that you guys are doing, it's not going to affect customers' bills at all or anything like that, right?
At some point, the cost of the storm will go into customers' bills, yes.
So even though we don't have any power,
It'll be part of the rates, the cost to run the electric system. Yeah.
Given the projections that you guys were going into the storm, and given that obviously there were landfall further down the coast, did you guys send any crews out of state thinking we would be covered?
We did not. We did not. And that's we did not. And again, so we hired on Friday because that's another thing we always look out for when there's a hurricane that comes up the East Coast. Other companies obviously get hit before us, so we have to get into the market and secure crews prior to the event happening.
going forward, what's the strategy with deciding which towns, which areas are going to get taken care of first?
We have a very kind of clear restoration methodology, right? We start with our transmission system because that's the power that brings us to the substations. We fix any substation issues, and then we get down to the street level. We typically try to do the biggest outages first, but we take our system and we break it down into small pieces so it's manageable. And in the case of this storm, pretty much every town had some damage. So we're broken down into satellites, and those satellites will deal with the biggest outages first, the main lines, what gets the most customers going. But it should come on pretty uniformly. And again, we'll do the backbones, we'll get the main roads going, and then we also have what we call low voltage crews, who they can't work on the primaries, but they can work on the services and the houses. So we hire them as well, and they're starting that work today. And that's so we can pull in the tail of this thing, because the smaller outages tend to wait to the end. But we can get a lot of crews who can just work secondaries, in addition to primary crews like behind us. So
once the work's done here, how many customers will come back online? Do you have a
Well, so this is part of a bigger outage from what I understand. So just talking to the crews here, when they finish this and a couple other jobs, there'll be a couple thousand customers that'll get restored.
Officials in the town of Vernon are claiming that 911 dispatch centers were overwhelmed after Eversource's outage hotline failed during the height of the storm. How did that happen?
So we had some sporadic issues with our outage map, as did some other companies who use the same service. Those are back up and running right now, and some tweaks were made to to strengthen the I believe it's beyond me, memory storage, so the throughput, but those have been resolved, and we're back up and running.
What was the cause of the outage?
You know, I couldn't tell you exactly.
They're also claiming that Eversource failed to address previously identified priority critical circuits to support life-sustaining and saving electrical power to a local hospital and public safety building. They claim that was identified after the October 2011 snowstorm. Do you have any comments?
I don't know anything about that event. Sorry. We could get some more information. I don't know what that is.
At that same press conference, they were complaining just in general about a lack of communication, and they feel like they weren't getting responses. I mean, they talked about stories about in one town, firefighters had to go in with fire extinguishers because of a downed wire. In another town, somebody was stuck in their car for an hour, and they just didn't feel like Eversource was being responsive enough.
Yeah. So as part of our prep, I mean, we reach out to every community. We have a liaison, community liaison, assigned to every community. We reach out to every community. We send emails to every community, and we make sure that we've connected their, say, incident commander for their EOC and our community liaison. So, you know, at some level in every community, there is people working with Eversource hand in hand.
But what's the reason for the delay in, for example, somebody stuck in their car for an hour, or not being able to get to a fire because of a live wire?
So, you know, you think about all the damage that we received in a very short amount of time across the whole state. You just can't get to every location all at once. So over the last, 24, 36 hours, we've been to more than, I think it was 1,200 of these wire down calls, fire and police level 2 calls. We had about 200 or so fire and police 1 calls, which are life in danger, and those ones get the first priority. Those were all cleaned up right away. There was about 200 of those. So, you know, we try to work very closely with the communities to identify their priorities, their roads that need to be cleared, wires that need to be, either tested dead or removed. And, the communication is there. And we reach out. We have a very formal process that we make sure we have the right contacts for each community. Now, whether we're going as fast as each community would like, that's something we work hard but we cannot satisfy everybody's needs all at once.
With the outage reports, we've been hearing from people that they'll get a notification that their power's back even though it's not. One, what should those people do? And two, how reliable are the numbers if these keep happening?
Well, the outage numbers are very reliable. We know how many people are out and how many we've restored. In some cases, on a blue sky day, we communicate to customers that your lights have gone out, even if they haven't called us, and we communicate when they're going to be back on. And that's information that customers need and want so they can plan. When we have a big event like this, we ultimately will stop that once we can't keep up with it. So initially, there may have been some calls that went out, but those have been stopped. And then what will happen is, as we go through our restoration process, and when a crew shows up at someone's neighborhood, and we know that those people's lights are going to go on, that those messages will be turned on for those people. So, our goal is to provide as much information as we can for our customers. We're doing it through, like I say, through that process, our IVR process, but we're also sending out twice-a-day notifications to communities and customers. We send emails out to the customers whose email we have. So we're trying very hard to keep people up to date with what's happening.
If the website had a problem early on, and we've heard reports of people not being able to get through to say that their power was out, how can you vouch for the current veracity of the outage numbers right now?
So the way it works is it's a model that rolls up. So we don't need everybody to call to say their lights are out for us to know. We also have a lot of sensors and kind of smart equipment on the system that it tells us what's happening. So in many cases we know the lights went out without customers calling us. So that's why we're fairly confident that we know who's out.
And you said you'll have numbers later tonight that'll projection of when the different towns will be back online?
Not towns as of yet. This will be a system. This will be an overall repair estimate for the system, And then as we complete our damage assessment, we'll get more granular and get down to the town level.
And how soon would that be?
That'll most likely start sometime tomorrow evening. Yeah.
Eversource was approved for, I think it was like $300 or $350 million rate increase just for storm prep and system upgrades. We've been hearing from lawmakers and customers questioning how we could have something like this happen with those rate hikes. I mean, why should they feel like that was money well spent?
Well, the short answer is day to day, Connecticut has very good reliability. Last year was the best year ever in the state of Connecticut in terms of keeping the lights on and responding when they go out. So, we operate the system well, we maintain the system well. In a case like this, when you have trees actually fall over, the system's not going to stop that tree from keeping the lights on. And that's kind of the crux of it. As I said, this will be the second biggest storm in the history of the state. No matter how much hardening of the system you do, a giant tree coming across the street is going to take that pole and wire it down.
Thanks, guys. We're going to have to wrap it up because he's got to get back and these guys got to get back to work.
All right, thanks, guys.
Should be good.